currently at Prairie Children Preschool have about 500 students. By the end of the year, we'll be about 550. Out of that population, 22 classrooms. We do RTI here at the preschool, and as part of an initiative that really is based in good, sound research, practices that support the learning of all children, not just children who are at risk, not just children who have a disability, but learning for all children. And that focus alone has given us a new way of thinking about teaching and learning.
I see response to intervention as being not only an initiative, but it really is a shift in philosophy. It's a shift in how you view problems and problems that children are experiencing, and a shift in how you view instruction and what works. I mean, it really is a shift in what do we think is going to help this child.
To us, when we think about RTI and we think about problem solving, we link it to instruction. It is sound, evidence-based instructional practices.
I think if I had advice too, I think a place to start at for people who are just starting is really more looking at your general curriculum and your general way, your tier 1, your universal way that you teach children and that you assess children. If I had to recommend a place to start, that would be the place. How can we be more reliable and valid about how we assess children, and how can we make sure that what we're giving to everybody is what works, or is what research says is going to give us the biggest benefit or bang for our buck?
I think that RTI has changed the atmosphere of the school. We are much more aware of skill instruction than we were many years ago, and I think our focus has changed. The conversations that we have about instruction are very different now than they were when I began teaching. So there's much more of a skill focused and making sure that each student is reaching that skill. We use the creative curriculum here at the preschool, and specifically from the creative curriculum, we have developed target skills, which become the primary objective of our program. The target skills are in line with the creative curriculum as well as the Illinois Early Learning Standards, and all teachers are responsible for teaching the target skills as well as collecting data on student achievement.
As a teacher, I can say that what we're doing now is thinking more critically about what skills do children need to learn? What is the knowledge that they need to have? And the business as usual, as I would define it, would have been to start with some more of a thematic unit, to start some more with the teacher-driven framework around which maybe skills would be embedded. And we've kind of flipped that. We've kind of turned that upside down so that now we're starting with what skills do children need to have? What are their entry-level skills? What is the knowledge they need to have? And then we are designing our units of study or our thematic units around what skills children need to have. And we think that by doing that, we have put into place more intentional teaching, more explicit instruction, and we've been able to maximize children's instructional time with us. Our community students are with us for only 4 days a week for 2.5 hours a day, so it's about 10 hours a week. So we've got to maximize our time for our students that are at risk and the students that have IEPs that do come 5 days a week. And even that, with 12.5 hours, it's just such a small amount of time. So we've found that by switching the way that we plan, we're able to ensure that our strategic instruction, what some people might describe as their Tier 2 instruction, is well matched to what children need.
Well, at the beginning of the year, we really spend a lot of time trying to get a good understanding of each child's level and where they're at, and trying to plan where do we want to see them go throughout the year. You're always going to have a large range of children who are at above average levels when they come into your class, as well as children who are below average. So we try to make sure that those children who come in above average, we want to modify activities to make sure that they're able to achieve even higher levels. But we need to pay close attention to the students who are maybe just in the middle or below average and make sure that they're making gains as well.
As a building, we have an instructional leadership team, and they really look at, what are we collecting data on? Are we collecting too much data? And we've had those conversations and really looking at what is useful, what is the useful data, what do we need to have data on? And so I think that really targeting just specific areas, having some basic social emotional data, having our P&I data, having our IGDs data, those were things we knew we wanted to do, and then really looking at our creative curriculum, which is the curriculum the teachers use in our classroom, and not having them collect data on every item on the checklist, but really, as a building, we decided, we're going to only really collect data on certain target skills so that it's more manageable. And, what target skills really reflect a domain area, like fine motor. What are the top skills you're going to really want to look at, and that'll help you make better decisions when you look at instruction. So I think that as a building leadership team or instructional leadership team, we've really tried to look at, what do we need, and then go from there.
We have created a much more streamlined system for collecting data that's consistent now among all the classrooms. And having that streamlined method that's more organized gives us an ability to actually understand the data and be able to use it for planning. So we attend these collaborative team meetings with support staff as well as classroom teachers, and we bring all our data together so that we can try to find commonalities among the classrooms and help support each other in making plans.
Restructuring how we team is an essential component, because previously we had teachers matched up with different therapists, and most of the conversation surrounded around individual students. We continue to do that, but also what we've implemented is more of teachers teaming with teachers, because they're the ones who are experiencing the issues and they need to be teaming with each other. Also, if they're teaming with each other, it's easier for them to look at a class-wide data set rather than focusing on conversations with therapists who are coming in who are only working with individual students.
An RTI model really does mean that your entire system is working differently. RTI is not something that happens in one classroom. We can't have one teacher say, well, I'm going to volunteer to try RTI this year. That's just not going to be the case. We try very hard to coach our staff members to not say things like, well, I'm going to RTI this child. There isn't one child that goes through RTI. If you think about what RTI does mean, it means that you put your best instructional practices in place at your core or at your universal level. So we're making sure that all of the children in our program are getting the best core instruction they can. And then beyond that, we would be engaging in a gathering of information, so it's some database decision making. And we're going to dovetail on that to make sure that we're putting into place evidence-based instruction that's going to be meeting their needs.
Once we identify the problem, or we implement interventions with the kids in either small groups or a one-to-one setting, during that time we take data to see if they're making progress from where they initially started, and then we test again after that to see if they made any progress a few weeks later. So between 4 to 8 weeks later, we'll test them again. And if they're making progress with the support, then we continue the support. And sometimes if they've made good enough progress, then we might stop the support and see if they regress. And if they regress, then we notice that they may need more help. And if they continue building those skills, then we know that we've done what we needed to do. If you have a process already in place, it makes it easier to follow the steps. So you're not just guessing what you need to do. You know step 1 is this and step 2 is that. So you have this outline basically of what you need to do, so it makes it easier.
To them, they think they're coming to school to play, but we sneak in all the target skills that we have to, hit, and they seem to enjoy it.
The way that we provide the Tier 2 instruction really depends on the skill that's needing to be taught. We're trying to really look at any skill that needs to be taught and not focusing only on one area of development. So we can be delivering Tier 2 instruction for gross motor skills, fine motor skills, as well as pre-academic skills, math, literacy, even social emotional development. So it varies. We may be providing Tier 2 instruction during center time when other children are engaged in independent play. We may be delivering Tier 2 instruction during motor time when the whole class is doing an obstacle course and specific children are receiving additional support to complete that task.
We will talk to the parent about working them through the triangle of the response intervention and starting to explain what is response intervention and what are we going to do. And if you've requested an evaluation, we'll move into the direction of the evaluation, as we do follow parent request for that.
The way that I would characterize RTI for preschool age children would be that for the children and their families, they have an experience that's very rewarding for them, that the children are engaged in what we would describe as good practices, good play-based activities in our preschool, and that we celebrate the strengths that children have.
That child is being monitored by not just that classroom teacher and that classroom staff. They're being monitored by the leadership in the building, as well as if the child's not making progress, we're going to move a little bit quicker. And we've had those conversations with parents that your child's got many eyes watching them now. We are monitoring them through this process and making sure, we're going to make sure that the interventions we have in place are working. And if they're not working, we're going to do something that we're going to go into more intensive services.
You do see them more motivated and then wanting to learn more things. And so any of the literacy groups that I've even done, the kids love it. They don't want it to end. When I talk about how we're all done with it, they get very upset. So no, they really, I think they love having that individual attention, even if it's in a small group of 3 or 4 kids. As well as I think that we make it motivating enough where it's an area that some of them might realize is difficult, but when we've pulled them out and work with them and they see that they're making progress, they get very excited about it and are even more motivated. So they have a good time here, and we have a good time here. I think it's just good teaching. You know, the benefits are that, you know, we're using some nice data to see if a child's responding and not having to just make a judgment call. And it makes things so clear to the parents as well. It's not like you have to overthink a decision. It's like, well, is the child responding or not responding? And then we have such nice data that it's right there.
We want them to gain all of those early academic skills. So for us, what characterizes a really good RTI kind of a program is one that can be viewed from the perspective of families and children, as one in which they have services that meet their needs, and that we celebrate what's really wonderful and unique about children that are moving through those preschool years before we get onto the more rigorous kinds of academic demands that start once they really get into formal elementary schooling.